Colleagues, my name is Bruce Struminger, and on behalf of the Project ECHO team and the WHO ACT Accelerator team, it's my pleasure to be the first person to welcome you to today's COVID-19 vaccination Building Global Capacity learning series. Today's the 15th in this series and the final session focused on adaptive leadership. Next slide, please. I'm just going to be running through a few quick logistic items. First, we have interpretation in English and French and Spanish, where we have interpretation in French and Spanish, and you can find those by going down to the globe icon at the bottom right of the Zoom toolbar and clicking on the language you would like to be hearing interpreted. If you click mute original audio, you will only hear the interpretation. Next slide, please. We really look forward to your questions and comments about today's session. Please put those in the Q&A feature, also at the bottom right of the Zoom toolbar. If you've got any IT or logistic issues or questions about the certificate of attendance, please put those in the chat. We'll be monitoring that and help you as best we can. Next slide. We are recording today's session as we always have, and your attendance is consent to be recorded. The recordings will be shared within a couple of days. All the recordings in English, French, and Spanish. They'll be on the TechNet 21 website. We'll share a link to that. They'll also be on the website that Project ECHO has to support this learning series. We're also offering a certificate of attendance through the University of New Mexico, where Project ECHO is based. And we'll share a link to that within 15 minutes or so of the end of today's session. After a quick 2 to 3 minute survey, you'll be able to get that electronic certificate of attendance. We really appreciate your feedback, and we encourage you to take advantage of that opportunity to get the certificate of attendance and share your feedback with us. Next slide. Just a note about data use. We take data stewardship very seriously, and all your individual data will be de-identified and kept confidential. The data that's shared with WHO is all de-identified and aggregated. Next slide. Just a reminder that this live learning series, which started in February, is building on 2 open WHO trainings, one focused on national deployment and vaccination planning, and that today's session is part of that series. There also has been a series focused on training for health workers, and we will share the links to those asynchronous online trainings in the chat. Next slide, please. Now it's my pleasure to hand over the microphone to our moderator for today's session and for this whole series, Shoshana Golden at WHO. Shoshana.
Thank you so much, Bruce. Hello, everyone, and it is great to be connecting with you all for our final session today. Next slide, please. Today is our last session of that 15-part Building Global Capacity webinar series. So we wanted to share with you a couple of highlights of what we've all accomplished together over the last 4 months. Since we started this webinar series on the 9th of February, we've had more than 13,000 learners that have participated from more than 180 countries around the world. We've had more than 6,400 learners that have attended these Zoom webinar sessions live, and another 7,000+ folks who have watched the YouTube recordings that are available in English, French, and Spanish. We want to thank all of you for joining this session and for joining the previous sessions, and always for sharing these links and resources on with your colleagues. We want to remind you that you can, in fact, continue to access all of these resources, the recordings, the PowerPoints, and the answered questions that remained after the Zoom call through the link that is available on the screen here on the TechNet 21 platform. We also would like to recognize our phenomenal community of practice. Through Alex's leadership and guidance, that community of practice grew to be more than 500 members on the English Telegram group and more than 400 members on the French Telegram group. Those groups will continue, and they are a place where you can ask questions, share your experiences, and continue to engage with each other and with experts on COVID-19 vaccination. We want to say a huge thank you to being part of this program. We have so enjoyed connecting with you, hearing your questions and your stories, and sharing key information and resources with you on a number of topics throughout the COVID-19 vaccination deployment process. We want to give a kind reminder to please take this end of webinar series survey that helps us to understand what you liked, where you thought we could continue to improve, and how you've used this webinar series to inform not only the way that we think about training for COVID-19 vaccination, but far beyond, for other routine immunizations and for other potential pandemic preparedness activities. Next slide, please. With that, I wanted to highlight again that all of these links are available here. You've got the TechNet 21 website, which has all of those recordings, presentations, etc. You've got the different discussion forums for each session, and you can see here the link for today's session on adaptive leadership. And we have here the Telegram links in both English and French for those two respective groups. Next slide, please. I'd now like to turn to the Boost team to guide us through the topic of adaptive leadership, starting with the questions, why this conversation and why now?
Great. Well, thank you, Shoshana, and hello, everyone, and welcome on behalf of the Boost community team. First of all, thank you to our partners, Project ECHO, WHO, and TechNet 21, for giving us the opportunity to introduce adaptive leadership to the vast community of practice that you've built around this Building Global Capacity webinar series. For those who are unfamiliar with the Boost community, we are a diverse network of more than 1,500 immunization professionals working in over 125 countries. Through our online platform, boostcommunity.org, we offer opportunities for the community to connect with peers, strengthen their leadership and advocacy skills, and grow in their careers. Next slide. Speaking of strengthening leadership skills, through the adaptive leadership framework, Boost members have been able to address some of the most difficult challenges in their work, especially new hurdles due to COVID-19 pandemic, like combating vaccine hesitancy. From the adaptive leadership trainings that we've offered so far to our community, the response has been overwhelmingly positive, and there's an eagerness to dive deeper into individual challenges. With that, I'm excited to hand over the mic to Eric Martin from Adaptive Change Advisors, who is one of the key facilitators of our Boost adaptive leadership trainings. And he's going to share a little bit more about this framework and how it can be beneficial to your work. So with that, over to you, Eric.
Well, thank you, Liz, and Shoshana and Bruce, and all of you who've been on this pretty remarkable journey, it sounds like, in this program. So we have the luxury of getting to join you in this last moment of the program. But, for me, I think this is maybe the most opportune moment to be talking about what we're here to talk about today, which is the question of leadership. What is leadership? What are your leadership moments? So I'm going to say a little bit about that and then turn it over to my very good colleague, No, who is going to have a conversation with some folks here who have been through this leadership journey of adaptive leadership. So the work of leadership is about opening hearts. It's not about teaching people. It's not about educating people. It's not about informing people or even correcting their misinformation. Those are all very important things to do, don't get me wrong. They just have nothing to do with leadership. Leadership moments are moments that make your heart leap with hopeful anticipation of taking that next step, or maybe with fear of taking that next step and failing. My hunch, my guess is that this program and the information that you've been immersing yourself in is going to bring to you leadership moments that you hadn't anticipated. You probably face one right now. In fact, each one of us faces 5 leadership moments every day, every single day. So the question is, would you recognize a leadership moment when it came your way? And would you know what to do when it did? I want to share a quick story about a moment that really changed the course of this work in my life. And so this is about 7-8 years ago. I'm standing on the corner across from a park, a public park. It's called Hyde Park, in case anyone has ever heard of it in London. And I'm staring at a man on the street who moments earlier didn't even exist. Standing next to me is another man. His name is Vimal Kumar. And Vimal's name is important to this story because as a child, Vimal didn't have a name. He did, but people didn't call it. What they called him was the son of a sweeper's son. And that's a derogatory name for people who are from the lowest, so-called lowest castes in India, the Dalit caste, formerly known as the untouchable caste, also known as the scavenger community, people who scavenge the streets or sometimes sweep the streets and do other jobs, which are really just very difficult to talk about here. So Vimal was a sweeper. And I met him in a leadership workshop, kind of like what we're doing here. After 3 days of workshopping, he said to me, Eric, he said, I want to do this work of democratizing leadership, right? That, bringing this leadership work to the world in a meaningful way. And when somebody like Vimal comes to you and says he wants to be a part of your work, you say yes. And I said to Vimal, yes. And then I said, but I don't know what it means to say yes, but yes. And then I left India, went back home and thought to myself, what did I just say? I made a promise to this man, a commitment. I said yes. And I have no idea how I'm going to honor that commitment. So fast forward about 6 months later, and there was an opportunity to do some leadership trainings in London. And I called up Vimal and I said, Vimal, here's our chance. Actually, it was on WhatsApp. He didn't have a phone. He said, Eric, I don't have a passport. I don't have a visa. I've never been outside of India. But somehow he managed to come. So Vimal and I are standing here on this corner across from the park, looking at this man who moments earlier didn't even exist. That man that we were looking at was a sweeper. He was a London sweeper, right? So he had the orange gloves and the yellow boots and the push cart, all of this equipment that Vimal and his family have been denied for their entire life, hundreds of years, thousands of years. Of course, Vimal saw this man. Of course he saw this man. I didn't. That man did not exist to me until I saw him through Vimal's eyes. I feel so ashamed. I feel so blind. But seeing that man, seeing that man's humanity, seeing the dignity of that man, helped me discover my own dignity, and it changed the course of this work. Because what Vimal said to me, and it was just a gesture, he went like this. He said, that man is our brother, Eric. He is part of this movement of democratizing leadership around the world. This is the work. So I share that story with you because my guess is that you've been through a lot, not just in this world, but in the last 16 weeks or however long you've been immersing yourself in this program. You've learned a lot. You have a lot of information, a lot you can teach people now, a lot you can do, things you can implement, right? That's all very important. However, it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with leadership. My guess, my hunch, is that one of the biggest gifts, one of the biggest choices, one of the biggest things that you bring back is your ability to see the unseen people in your community, in your country, right? You know what they need. You know what they want. You know where they are. You know who they are. The world doesn't. The world doesn't. And I would dare to say that much of the world doesn't even care. So my feeling, my hunch, my guess is that part of your leadership, as you go back with this knowledge and these skills, is to lift up the voices of these unseen people who are hard to reach, who don't want to be reached, and bring their authentic voice and needs into the halls of power that you have access to, more than they do, at least. I know none of us feels like we have access to the hall of power, but probably more than they do. So how do you use your voice? What are your leadership moments? That's what we want to explore a little bit today. So in adaptive leadership, which is a leadership framework that came out of Harvard Kennedy School many, many years ago, there's a couple of concepts, a couple of ideas that I want to just touch on very briefly. And the first one is what we call getting on the balcony. So this is a metaphor. It's the idea of getting perspective in the midst of action. I'm guessing that maybe a few of us on this call like to dance. I remember I was in Malawi a couple of years ago, working with the government on a community health worker national strategy. And after the culmination of about 18 months of working together, at the end of which was the development of the first national strategy for community health workers in Malawi, we had a big celebration and we did a lot of dancing, and it was amazing. One of the best dance parties I've ever been to in my life. And while I was kind of awkwardly on the dance floor, having fun, trying to keep up, I had this experience of getting off the dance floor and kind of rising above and seeing this group of people from all countries, Malawi, Nigeria, Kenya. We have people from across the continent, as well as from places elsewhere in the world, just celebrating together, celebrating the launch of this, celebrating each other. And at some point, I think somebody decided to jump in the water and all hell broke loose. But it was, for me, just an experience, not just of being on the dance floor, feeling awkward, wondering what my next move was. This is what organizational life is like. The day-to-day decisions that we make, they're all very important, the tactical decisions. But sometimes it helps to get perspective. And so as you emerge from this program, I invite you to ask yourself, what is the purpose for which you came to this program? What are the possibilities for yourself, for your work, for your team, your organization, your community, now that you have this information that you do have? And what are the leadership moments that you face, but not only you, the people around you? Because one of the most important choices in leadership is to hold up the leadership of others. People who are not feeling like they have power, but they face that choice, like you do and like I do, to step into the unknown, to have a courageous conversation, to ask the difficult question that nobody wants to ask. These are moments of leadership. They have nothing to do with your formal authority or power. Yes, formal and authority and power are helpful, right? But you'll never have enough power. You'll never have enough authority to get done what needs to get done. So how do we mobilize people to tackle these challenges that have no known easy answers, like vaccine equity, for example? So that's the first idea I want to share. And then I want to just talk a little bit more about this idea, a second idea from adaptive leadership, which is what we call the difference between technical problems and adaptive problems. The technical problem is not easy, but you have a known solution. There's a protocol, a best practice, an answer, an expert that can be brought in to solve the problem. And the problem is very clear. A broken arm is a good example. With a broken arm, there's no debate about what the problem is. And the solution is very clear. I can't do it. Many of you probably can. But you fix the arm, set it, in 6 weeks, you're back to normal. An adaptive problem is very different. The solution is not clear. Maybe there's many solutions. Maybe the problem is debated. Maybe people deny that the problem even exists. And there's no one person who can solve it. This is why it requires leadership. Vaccine equity is a quintessential adaptive challenge. And the single biggest mistake that we make in organizational life and in our personal lives is we put a technical fix on adaptive problems. And then the problem doesn't go away. I choose vaccine equity. I know it's not the only topic of conversation here, but it's a really important one because vaccine inequity existed before COVID. It will exist after COVID. We knew that. Everyone knew that. Many of you have tried to solve this, right? And my suggestion to you is that what's needed is not leadership from somebody at the top of the chain. Pharmaceutical executives, donors, ministry officials. Yes, wouldn't it be great if they exercise leadership more than they do? My guess is that they're trying. They probably could try harder. Where is the true leadership needing to come from? Whose work is it to help raise those hard questions at the decision-making tables when those voices are unheard? These aren't easy choices. I had the real privilege in one of our Boost Adaptive Leadership workshop programs. It was an intensive, I think it was an 8-week, 10-week program. I won't mention the person by name. He might be here. And if he's not, I know there's people on this call, I see the names, who know who I'm talking about. He went through the workshop and realized that his leadership moment, his adaptive challenge, was to try to tackle the problem of donor dependency in his home country of Nigeria. It's a big country, it's a big problem. He's not going to tackle it all, but he saw an opportunity. And he decided to have a courageous conversation with a state level health official, very highly placed health official. And a lot of our work with him was to help him prepare for that, to diagnose the problem. What is the technical problem? What is the adaptive problem? To diagnose the political landscape, the stakeholder landscape, to connect to his own sense of purpose and possibility. So he reached out to this health official and said, I want to talk to you about this challenge. He didn't call it an adaptive challenge of donor dependency. And the health official says to him, I'll talk to you, but I'm only going to give you 30 minutes to convince me that I should ever talk to you again. So he went into this conversation. This is about maybe a year ago now. Goes through the conversation. And after 30 minutes, the health official wants to keep talking. After 45 minutes, he wants to keep talking. After an hour and a half, they're still talking. And at the end of that conversation, the health official, this very highly placed person in the state, said, I want you to help us tackle this challenge. Can you help me with that? So let me ask you guys, who was exercising leadership in that moment? Was it the health official? Or was it our friend? Or maybe it was both. But I want you to really think about that. Where was the risk? Who took the risk? Who made the choice? And where should the work of tackling that particular adaptive challenge reside? Is that the work of the health official? Is that the work of our friend? Or does the true leadership work also reside elsewhere in that system? So these moments are everywhere, these leadership moments. And once you see them, you can't unsee them. Just like when I was standing on that corner with Vimal, looking at that sweeper who minutes earlier had not even existed to me. Once you see that man, you can't unsee them. It changes your work forever. And again, the gift of insight, the experience each of you bring, living in your communities, working in your communities, serving your communities, you know the terrain better than anybody else. So my hope as you wrap up this program, and as you attend the next program or other educational opportunities, these are invaluable. People have put in blood, sweat, and tears to make these programs available. I know that. But my hope is that we don't let the technical knowledge from these programs, from leadership programs, from our education system, we don't let that technical knowledge take precedence over what our hearts know is needed. Because leadership happens below our neck. It happens in our heart. It happens in our gut. It doesn't happen in our head. So with that, my friend Nol, who's been on this journey with me for many, many years, is going to lead us through a conversation and help us more deeply connect, not just to the stories of others who have exercised leadership, colleagues of yours, but as a reminder to each one of us that these opportunities are also available. So, no, let me turn it over to you.
Thank you, Eric. Such a powerful story. I remember it when it was told. And, I think there's some folks here actually who you referred to, who are on the call, who were there in the room as well. I want to actually invite them to join me. Sohini, Adunola, and Emmanuel. So we have a brief conversation about some of what Eric has talked about. And as they turn on their cameras, I just want to tell a story of my own. My name is Mwabizit Ndlovu. I'm currently in Johannesburg, where I'm based, most of the time between Johannesburg and Kampala. I'm from Zimbabwe. And very recently, I was talking to my mother in Zimbabwe when I visited her a few weeks ago about a very early memory that I have of her taking me for vaccination. And it's a very dear and warm kind of memory of our bonding experience through what was a bit of a painful experience, getting my jabs. I was very young, but it came up, during this vibrant conversation between me and her, trying to convince her and some of my relatives to get vaccinated for COVID. And my mother's turning 80 next year. And so, I'm in preacher mode and going, and she pulls out my vaccination card, and it's kind of falling apart because it's almost 37 years old. I mean, it's an old card, paper card, and she gives it to me. And it's got, all the times that I got vaccinated, and I got it immediately. She's the smartest person I know. And she loves me and all my siblings. And here I am, busy trying to convince her of, this is vaccine hesitancy that you guys are involved in, and you need to know better. So it led to an empathetic moment for me of understanding, of seeing her, right, as a person with agency, who's smart, who knows way more than I know. But our conversation changed. And it reminds me also of something that Adunola talked about during one of our leadership courses that we do on the Boost platform. And I wonder if Adunola is on at the moment. I can see Eric's face. Maybe we can pin Adunola on the screen, Shoshana, while I have a chat with her. Adunola, welcome. I haven't seen you in a while, almost a year now. You were in that class that Eric was talking about, so it's lovely to see you.
Yeah, it's really great to see you too.
Great. And the last time we spoke, you had actually just shared a challenge that you had, something close to what I just shared, the story that I just shared about my mother and myself. You were dealing with some parents, and they had an argument with the government, and vaccine hesitancy was creeping in. But there was a moment during our conversation, during the workshop, where a coin dropped for you. And I'm not going to tell your story. You'd probably tell it the best. Can you just share with this group of folks what happened for you? This technical adaptive thing that Eric was talking about. When you were trying to address that challenge, what happened? How did your mind change?
Okay, yeah, thank you, Uncle. So for me, my adaptive challenge was regarding block rejection of vaccination by a group of parents who, because they were unhappy with the government, because they felt infrastructure and some other things that the government give out to other communities was not reaching their community. So they decided to reject the vaccination for their children. So I was supporting the local government area in Nigeria, in Jigawa State, as a management support team. And so when I heard about these parents rejecting the vaccines, I was really surprised. And I think I was looking more about the technical part, because I just couldn't really understand why parents would want to bargain with their children's health for what government is not doing for them. So in a way, I judged the parent and saw them as irresponsible parent, and I just didn't want to hear of it. But during our conversation, during the training, we went through the process of trying to identify the values, loyalties of each of the factions that we identified. And along the line, because I'm actually one of the factions, because I was also part of the problem, although initially I didn't see myself as part of the problem, I thought I was solving a problem, but I later got to realize that I was focusing more on the technical aspect of trying to resolve the hesitancy and just get the parents to take the vaccine without really thinking through what is really happening with the parents. I didn't really put myself in their shoes to understand why they had to make that hard decision of using their children as the bargaining chip with the government. But from the training that I had, I was able to go through that process to really step back and look at the situation and try to understand why the parents were really rejecting the vaccination and how they came to that point where they felt, okay, this is the way to go. And understanding the parents now and seeing things from their perspective made me able to better interact with them, to actually not be judgmental. So I was able to really now be able to talk to them and then see ways where we can reach a common ground and let them understand the reason why they now need to take the vaccines for their children. Thank you.
Thank you, Adunola. And what a powerful moment when that realization came, because I was there with you, and I can remember it. You know what Eric is talking about as leadership moments, and I know Sohini and Emmanuel might have a thing or two to say about that, since they're part of this community boost. We get together often. Using different excuses. Sometimes it's a leadership course, sometimes it's a listening and learning series, but we get together often as a community to kind of fellowship and get on the balcony and have these balcony conversations. So let me invite Sohini and Emmanuel to say a bit about their reflections on Adunola's case, or even their own. There's probably some similarities in what you guys are facing where you are. So Sohini and then Emmanuel.
Hi, thanks, Nok. Thanks, everyone. I was listening to Adunola's story, and it's a beautiful one. And I was also thinking back to what Eric had also mentioned a little while back about, understanding the values and loyalties of the people that we want to convince for something. And he also said that, leadership is about unlocking hearts, and I think the story that I would like to share is about my own family. We live in a home in Kolkata where it's a building which has mostly senior citizens, and the children are in different cities, so they are pretty much left alone. And even though they are not resistant to getting vaccinated, they do have a lot of logistical issues in actually going and getting vaccinated when there are long queues and things like that. And most importantly, I think they require that hope that this is what is going to happen. This is how it's going to help me when I go and take the vaccine. And I tried talking to them a lot about technical information, that you need to go and take this. This is what it's going to help you with. It's going to help you from getting, not getting severely ill. It's going to help you keep away hospitalization. But ultimately what worked was, I had read in a newspaper of one of the first women, in fact, one of the first persons to receive COVID-19 vaccine in UK was a very old lady. I think she was somewhere close to her 90s. She was about to be 90 years old. And when I read that story to my mother, she said, oh, you know what, she's an old lady, and she probably doesn't fear anything related to getting that vaccine. I said, but you know what? No, what she has said in that news article is that she wants to get vaccinated because she has her birthday coming up, and after getting vaccinated, she can actually visit her family. So she wasn't taking the vaccine out of this, idea that it's okay, I'm old and I can take a risk. She was taking the vaccine because she wanted to do so much more. She wanted to celebrate her birthday, and she thought that the vaccine was, one of her best birthday gifts. And consequently, I told this story to a lot of my neighbors, and that's how I think they got motivated. They got, they felt that hope of taking the vaccine. So it's not like they wouldn't have taken the vaccine, but they were probably waiting, they were delaying, they were wondering if they should or they should not. But when they saw that, even old people are taking the vaccine because they can do so much more after taking the vaccine, I think that inspired them. And yes, I had to help them a little bit by going to the vaccination centers, queuing up, getting their registration done and things like that. But I did manage to get everyone in the compound vaccinated. So we have a safe and healthy apartment that we are living in now. So that was my story, but I really wanted to thank Eric because he made me remember this by saying that leadership is a lot about unlocking hearts and bringing hope to people. So over to you again, Nok.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Sohini. And yeah, the power of stories, right? Can't emphasize that enough in unlocking hearts and minds, because the technical work is important too. I hope our takeaway from Eric earlier is recognizing that there's an importance to both types of work, and this idea of whose work is it. Emmanuel, I know you wear a bunch of hats in serving our community and others as well, when you're not a healthcare professional, and leading in other ways. What are you thinking right now? I mean, from hearing those stories, I'd love to get your perspective.
Thank you.
Emmanuel, I think you're a bit low.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Now, can you increase your volume a bit? Are you able to?
Can you hear me? Okay, fine. I said it's actually a pleasure being part of this call, and it has been a journey.
Apologies for interrupting, but Emmanuel, if you could open up your computer or come closer to your microphone so that our interpreters can hear your sound.
Okay, sorry, I'm in the. Can you hear me now?
It's better, but if you could
Okay.
still come closer to your microphone, it might get even louder.
Okay. While Emmanuel is sorting out his sound there, I see there's a lot of our Boost colleagues on the call, so I'll tap on someone who I didn't ask permission to tap them before, but Alain is here. Alain, I wonder if you could unmute your microphone, if you can hear us. Or can we unmute Alain, Shoshana?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Emmanuel, you're
I
still
audible
very
enough?
low.
Okay.
Can you kindly put the name of the person that you would like to be unmuted into the WhatsApp, and our Echo colleague can support?
All right. Alain Blaze, I believe his name is hand
I
is
can do
up.
that. No, I can do that for you.
Okay, go for it. And Alain's hand is up, so we can just unmute him from there. Okay, there's Alain. Alain, welcome.
Yes, Uncle, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Uncle and Rick, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. Go ahead. It's been a long time.
Very long time. I'm happy to hear the difficult conversations we are having here, and for those who share their story with us. So I'm with you, Uncle.
Okay, Alain, I'm wondering if you have some thoughts from the balcony, from what you've heard from Sohini, from Adunola, even some of the work that Eric is alluding to. I know when we started our journey, you were taking a course on the Boost platform, and you ended up being part of faculty at some point. What kind of leadership moments have you been leaning into? Maybe you can share a bit of that in a minute or two.
Yes, sure, Uncle. So it's exciting. There is so much to say, and thank you to Adenola and Sohini. So the best moment for me was really getting into the balcony and looking at the dance floor and see the factions or what we call stakeholders, let's say that way, dancing and see yourself dancing and understanding that you may be part of the problem. That was for me an incredible moment as an immunization professional, where we always see the community as we want to get them the vaccines, not understanding that they were also part of the dance. And then maybe we should get into the balcony and look into the dance floor and try to understand the dynamic that are going the dance floor. Then you come to realize, like Adonella was saying, that you may be part of the problem, and then you really want to hear from them. And this leadership moment, one of the most important part take away from the adaptive leadership for immunization professional, we are leaders. We all, and that is important, and how we want to enable others to be also leaders. And I think that we all know that we are working with the community. And since the cause, I'm really doing my effort to have the voices heard, those who are not at the table, but who have the decision to get vaccinated. I'm talking about mothers and children. They have something to say. We must listen to them. We must see them dancing and see how we can help them to be the leaders that we want to see, because we are leaders. And that is why democratizing leadership is really an important takeaway as an immunization professional. And thanks to Eric and Co and all the team, wonderful moment. I would like to invite everyone to go to the Boost website and try to register for the course. And then we will understand that beside the technical part of immunization, we need that adaptive leadership, and you will see how that would transform you in the way you approach a meeting, the way you approach your day-to-day work, and it's amazing. We need all to make sure that we all sit at the table to discuss about the problem that we are facing, getting things much more easier. And thank you, Nko. It's very, very interesting concept, adaptive leadership for us immunization professionals.
Thank you, Alan. Alan was always the most valuable player, you know, when we voted for the folks that brought so much value to our group during the course. So it's wonderful to hear from you, Alan. And the folks who have their cameras on were nodding vigorously when you were talking. So you might not have seen that, but some of what you're saying is resonating here. And Alan referred to democratizing leadership, which is part of the title of Eric's book. Sorry, Eric, to spotlight you. Eric has a book called Your Leadership Moment. Democratizing leadership in the age of authoritarianism. And it's some of those concepts you might find there, and we'll make some of those ideas available to you on the Boost platform. So let me take a few moments just to thank the Boost community, the fellows, Soini, Emmanuel, sorry we couldn't hear from you, Adunola, Elaine. It's been wonderful to hear you voice some of this this work that we've done, but also spotlight some of those voices that are unheard, the people that are unseen, that Eric was referring to. And I want to invite Eric back to help us close the session, talking to us a bit more about some of this work. Eric, over to you.
Thank you, Noel. And since we do have a few more minutes, I think, extra in the agenda, maybe a couple minutes, I do wonder if there's any questions in the chat box that folks from this community here do want to ask of us or of the panelists, or just a thought you want to share. So maybe I'll give it, I don't know, 30 seconds or so here, just to see if there's anything else that comes through the chat box. And if anyone sees a comment or a question that grabbed your attention, please bring it to ours. You know, this is about really, centering the voices of the people who are doing the work And while we don't have the full setup here to do that, I would love to have a couple of questions come our way if we can be helpful. So I'm scrolling through right now to see. Divan, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name, Divan, but I learned enough about leadership in a matter of minutes. It doesn't take much. You don't have to go to a long course or workshop. They're very helpful, as you've heard. You don't have to go to Harvard. In fact, I got into this work in part having grown up in a neighborhood that was somewhat on the margins. Feeling that the leadership that I believed made a difference in this world was a leadership that I was seeing in my own neighborhood. And while there was a draw to kind of go to the big name places and the big organizations to get taught about leadership, it wasn't really about that. That for me was the genesis of this idea of democratizing leadership. I saw a question come through here. Yeah, okay. So if there's anything that comes up, we'll address it as we go. But I want to share some closing thoughts here on leadership over a lifetime. Because once you start to raise the unasked questions, when you step into these moments of leadership that begin to move and shift how your team operates, how your organization operates, even in a small way. As you can expect, you're going to get pushback. People will resist. That's a normal part of the process. And we actually, in adaptive leadership, see resistance as a good sign. If people are not pushing back, you're probably not changing anything. If they're passively receiving information, even in this workshop, even in this conversation, things are probably not changing, below the neck. So while many of us, in most of our cultures don't like conflict, that's a part of the process, because growth, change, behavioral change in our values, changes in our loyalties to others, to embrace the kind of services, the kind of offerings you're bringing to people are not easy. If it was easy, we wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be doing this course, right? So I want to just encourage you to look out for that resistance, and also know that on the other side of that is growth and opportunity and health. So how do you stay steady as you go through a period of change, as you lead others to tackle adaptive challenges? I just want to offer a few closing thoughts on that, and then I'll turn it back over to Knut to share some resources, and then we'll begin to wrap up. The first thing is to have a place, a quiet place that you can go to, just to be, just to be, not to do. We spend so much of our time on the dance floor doing. But we're human beings, not human doings. So for some people, that place might be a sanctuary, a mosque, a church, a place of worship, a place to reflect, to connect to why you're here, why you do what you do, to take that next step. For others, it might be a long, hot shower, or a long, hot bath, or a walk in the park. It could be a team retreat. There's many different ways you can get sanctuary, find sanctuary in your life, to get on the balcony. The second thing is to take care. Now, you know this, right? Getting enough sleep, eating well, quitting smoking, exercise. These are important all the time. But when you're going through change, when you're leading others, you can't be available to them if you're not well, if you're not taking care of yourself. And the third thing is to find confidants. And by confidant, what I mean is a person who cares more about you than they care about your work. It could be an old school friend, maybe an uncle or an aunt or a cousin. It could be someone in your workplace, but that's really hard to find, because there are going to be times where you just need someone, a shoulder to cry on, someone to complain to, someone to say, is it just me? Am I crazy, or is the world crazy? And share whatever you want to share without worrying about who hears that or what they think about you. So having a place of sanctuary, literally or in other ways, taking care of yourself and having a person you could turn to. Again, we should all have those things in our lives all the time, but all the more important when you're tackling these adaptive challenges and creating the more beautiful world and communities that your heart knows is possible. So with that, no, one more time over to you to share some resources for folks. I saw some questions there, and we'll call it a day.
Thank you, Eric. I think Liz has a few slides that she'd like to share to direct people to where they need to go if they'd like slides. I've seen some requests for slides and how to join the Boost community and so on. Liz?
Great, thanks Milk and thanks Eric. So you can continue today's conversation by signing up for a free Boost member account to engage with your peers on the platform. And there's some information up on the screen. So you can also learn more about our adaptive leadership offerings, including an upcoming self-paced introductory adaptive leadership course that we have coming up in the next few months. We also have some orientation materials available online to help navigate the platform. But if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us at info@boostcommunity.org. Next slide. And as for some additional resources, I just wanted to highlight 2 Boost initiatives which showcase innovations that are occurring in our community. So first, we have Bright Spots, which are stories of grassroots-driven incremental innovation in routine immunization service delivery. Our second call of stories launched last September with a thematic focused on resourcefulness, adaptability, and resilience driven by subnational immunization professionals. So new stories and podcasts will be released this month through August of this year. And story submitters will be featured in a continuing live engagement series. So we encourage you to access our Bright Spots microsite, which is brightspots.boostcommunity.org. And again, I believe all these slides will be shared after the presentation, so you can click on those links. And then Sparks also surface real-time moments in innovation. So a Spark can include a successful rollout of a new tool, engagement of the community, or development of a strong partnership among other aspects of immunization. And we have 2 recent Sparks that have been published. They're short YouTube videos, and again, can be found on that Bright Spots microsite. Next slide. So finally, Boost is excited to announce our 3rd COVID-19 listening and learning session. We'll explore some lessons learned around supply chain, managing multiple products, and what it will take to achieve equitable vaccine distribution. So we invite you all to join us for our 3rd session of the series next Tuesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Next slide. I think I've gone over most of the links on this slide. But again, would welcome you to join the platform to learn more about Boost and again, to engage with all the members in our community, including our facilitators for today's session, Eric and Milk. And I think I might pass it over to Shoshana, if there's any closing remarks.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to the Boost team and to the adaptive leadership folks. It was wonderful to conclude our Building Global Capacity series focused on some real examples from immunization managers and other colleagues who have been working in this space and have examples of how you too can go back to your workplace and use all of these moments available to you to make really strong and really heartfelt leadership decisions. With that, I'd like to say a huge thank you to everyone who has attended this course throughout our 15 sessions, as well as to our interpreters who have also done a phenomenal job, even at 5 o'clock in the morning, their time. Another huge thanks to our ECHO team. They have made all of these webinar sessions possible. We could not have done this without them. And to all of my colleagues at WHO and in other organizations who have come on to these different sessions to talk with you all about different aspects of COVID-19 vaccination, respond to your questions, and as always, learn from your examples. With that, a huge thank you to all. We really would appreciate if you take the end of series survey so we can learn what went well, how we can continue to improve for future sessions, for other COVID-19 vaccination courses, and of course for non-COVID-19 vaccination courses as well. And finally, last but not least, huge thanks to everyone who shared out these resources with their colleagues. Please feel free to continue to do so. We want to make sure that, as Eric said, all knowledge is democratized and widely accessible. With that, wishing you a wonderful rest of your morning, afternoon, or evening, and all of the best as you continue forward in your COVID-19 vaccination journey.